over the other. Our goal is to help fleets understand which technologies and applications work best for their applications, for their drive and duty cycles, and to provide any assistance necessary to deploy those fuels and technologies. In that regard, one area of consistent assistance that we've provided is helping to secure grant funding to deploy these technologies in fleet operations. So over the last several years, we've had a lot of success with state and federal funds, one of which is the Ohio EPA's Diesel Emission Reduction Grant. This grant, which published its request for proposals on October 1st, 2015, has a deadline of December 1st, 2015 for applications. The grant program has $15 million in it. $5 million of those dollars are earmarked for public transit organizations like Central Ohio Regional Transit and other transits across the state who are working through the Federal Transit Administration to deliver transit services for residents of their areas. The other $10 million is available to any public or private fleet that meets certain eligibility criteria, and we'll talk about that in depth in a moment. But the projects in the Diesel Emission Reduction Grant focus on medium to heavy-duty diesel vehicles, as it says here at the bottom, and the projects can range from retrofits, including anti-idling technologies or emission controls added to existing vehicles, engine repowers, which would consist of either repowering an existing diesel vehicle with a new, cleaner diesel engine, or converting an existing diesel vehicle to a new alternative fuel-powered engine, and then replacements, which is retiring an old diesel and replacing it with a new, cleaner technology. Before we get into the details, I want to make it clear that all fleets are eligible to apply directly to the Ohio EPA. If you are a public fleet, public entity such as a local government, county, or school district, or other public entity, you're eligible to apply directly to the Ohio EPA. If you are a private fleet, you are still eligible to apply directly to the Ohio EPA. However, you need a public agency sponsor. A public agency sponsor is either a state agency, like the Ohio EPA itself. There's a number of other agencies at the state level listed in the Diesel Emission Reduction Grant solicitation. And you need to submit, as a private fleet, some financial vetting information to that public agency. The public agency can also be a local government or county or other type public entity. It cannot be a nonprofit or university or anything like that. So you need to submit financial information to that public agency sponsor, and you must sign a public-private partnership with that public agency where the public agency signs off saying that your private fleet project has a public emission and air quality benefit. So if you can meet that bar, then you're eligible to apply directly to the EPA. No third-party assistance is needed if you're a public fleet. If you're a private fleet, you do need a public agency sponsor, which you can arrange for yourself and apply directly to the Ohio EPA. However, a portion of today's webinar will focus on the assistance Clean Fuels Ohio can provide. As a nonprofit, most of our activities are grant funded. This area of our activities is not grant funded currently, so we can write and submit grant applications on behalf of any fleets on a fee-for-service model. We have two basic models to allow for flexibility. We have an upfront cost model where we quote our costs and the time it'll take based on the scale and scope of the project, and fleets can contract with us and pay that cost up front. We also have a success fee model, which is eligible for fleets who Clean Fuels Ohio deems their projects to be competitive. We'll talk more about that in a moment, about how we can do that and provide that service. But the success fee would be paid upon successful grant award and designed to limit upfront costs and liability for fleets. So again, you don't have to work with Clean Fuels Ohio, but should you want Clean Fuels Ohio to completely write and submit your application for you, there'll be more information about that on the tail end of this webinar. In the last round, the 2013 round was the last round that was offered. Clean Fuels Ohio wrote grants for 15 partners, and we received $7.24 million in funding for those 15 fleets out of the $10 million that were available. So again, we're fuel and technology neutral, so you can see here that there's a number of technologies that ranged across the board based on what fleets we're looking for. So with that, we're going to get into the details of the 2015 DERG funding round. I'm going to go through this presentation, and then at the end, we'll unmute your lines. It will be available for chatted questions as well as verbal questions from those joining us on the call. But for now, the details of the 2015 DERG funding round. So again, $15 million available, $5 million of that earmarked for public transit agencies, the other 10 available for medium to heavy duty diesel vehicle retrofits, repowers, conversions, and replacements. So the eligibility criteria. Over the last several years, each year the eligibility criteria has become stricter and tighter, and that is indicative of the move, all the changes that the EPA has made this round, which I will detail now. First and foremost, there is a pass-fail geographic eligibility. This funding source is ultimately from the Federal Highway Administration through their Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality, CMAQ, program. And so this map here shows the CMAQ eligible counties in green. Fleets must demonstrate that they operate 65% or more of the time in one or more of these green counties that are not meeting federal air quality standards. So there is no hard and fast way that the EPA outlines for you to document this. It asks in the grant narrative that you indicate how you will be documenting this, and you will have to document this, continue to document this for 5 years after the implementation of your project. So, you know, if you operate solely in Central Ohio and Franklin County, you know, that's an likely easier proof to make. But if you are a fleet that travels regionally throughout the state, and you can demonstrate by GPS data or stop location or route data or other means that you travel 65% or more of the time in these green counties, then your project is eligible. That's the first pass-fail that you'll be subjected to in this grant program. So funding levels, what you're eligible for in terms of funding. The grant, the DERG grant, makes a special carve-out for certain public fleet vehicles. So we see here, number one, public school buses, public as in city or county refuse vehicles, public transit agency vehicles, and government road maintenance vehicles are all eligible for up to 80% of the full vehicle cost reimbursed. All other projects are eligible for 80% of the incremental cost reimbursed. So this chart really outlines this, but you know, the shorthand here is that if you are doing a replacement vehicle project, and for illustrating purposes, you're taking a $70,000 diesel vehicle and replacing it with a $100,000 cleaner vehicle, you would be eligible for 80% of that incremental cost premium. So if you're going from that $70,000 dirtier diesel to a $100,000 cleaner vehicle, then that $30,000 incremental premium, you're eligible for 80% reimbursement on that. And reimbursement means that this is a reimbursement grant program. The fleets that are awarded must enter into contract with the EPA, get the green light to go ahead, do a competitive bid process, purchase a new vehicle, document everything has been done, submit that the invoices have been paid, and then reimbursement comes on the back end after you've documented that the project has been complete. All other projects, so conversions, repowers, and retrofits, are eligible for 80% reimbursement on the kit and labor to execute the project. So if you are putting an auxiliary power unit or other anti-idling device on your vehicle, 80% of that unit's cost and labor to install. If you're converting a vehicle to an alternative fuel or cleaner technology, 80% of the conversion kit and cost to install. And if you are putting emission controls on your vehicle, 80% of those emission control kits and labor to install. Installation labor must be a qualified third-party vendor, or you must be able to demonstrate a compelling reason to sole source within your internal shop to qualify for labor reimbursement. So public fleets of specific kinds are eligible for 80% of the total vehicle. All other fleets are eligible for 80% incremental costs on replacements, or 80% of kit and installation labor for conversion, repowers, and retrofits. So additional eligibility criteria. This program is targeted toward legacy diesel vehicles with a goal of helping them either retire early or be converted proactively to cleaner technologies. So they want you to make a written commitment on letterhead that your vehicles that you are targeting for the project have at least 5 years of useful life remaining. They specifically indicate that they do not want vehicles that would be normally retired through the replacement process. They want vehicles that are being proactively either retired or retrofitted to be funded through this project. They also stipulate that vehicles must be used in the same application. So they want to know, they want clear statements that you're not expanding the size of your fleet through this funding, that you're using this funding to clean up existing vehicles and use those newer upgraded vehicles in the same function for the same purposes. Any replacement project requires scrapping the older vehicle. So if you're taking an old diesel and replacing it with a new alternative fuel vehicle or even a new cleaner diesel vehicle, you must scrap the old vehicle and document that it's been scrapped. That includes drilling a hole through the engine block and disposing of the vehicle chassis. They want clear proof that this vehicle has not been sold to another fleet in the state, put on the used vehicle market, or even sold in any way abroad. So there are some potential other options, such as sending the vehicle back to the original equipment manufacturer, who, if they have a program, can disassemble the vehicle and use parts for other purposes. Or there are options for donating the vehicle to technical colleges or other type entities that could use it for educational purposes, such as mechanic training. But the essential requirement is that all vehicle replacement projects, old vehicles must be scrapped. This is a requirement that has been a non-starter for a number of fleets in the past who have official policies to either sell or in other ways retain value from their equipment that they're replacing. So this is a hard and fast requirement. Also, the emphasis of this program, because it's federal highway funding, is on projects that will reduce emissions around state and federal highways. So even if your project does not fully operate on state and federal highways, for instance, in the last round we submitted a marine barge project. The barges towed or pushed coal barges on the Ohio River. You know, that project was able to demonstrate that were these marine vessels not used, this coal would be diverted to rail or highway traffic, so that was therefore eligible. Where this really becomes a sticking point is with off-road vehicle projects such as construction equipment. Construction equipment is stipulated by this program that it must work on a Title 23 highway project for 5 years after its deployment. So that has really been a requirement that has prevented a number of off-road construction equipment projects from getting funded because there are very few entities that have contracts that meet those specifics into the 5-year future. So happy to discuss these in more detail at the tail end of the call. So again, for private fleets, private fleets are required to have a public agency sponsor. That must be a state agency or a local government, and you must enter into a public-private partnership agreement with that entity. There's a sample public-private partnership agreement on the Ohio EPA's website and in the DERG solicitation, so all those details are available. You also must submit financial records. So the easier route to do this is if you have a credit rating from a credit rating agency. They detail this in their solicitation, such as Moody's, Dun & Bradstreet, or other official credit rating. You're able to submit that information. If you do not have an official credit rating from one of those agencies that they list, you must submit 3 years of audited financial records, and their goal is just proof that the company has the cash flow to accomplish the project and be reimbursed on the back end. So this funding, like I mentioned, is all on a reimbursement basis. So they just want to make sure fleets are fully capable of performing all work and then being reimbursed at the end. So scoring criteria. Here's how the grant will be scored and awarded. They're looking at a cost-effectiveness metric as the main award for this, or the main metric and scoring system for this program. What they want you to show is the total cost of your project and the total emission reductions that will result from your project. So they ask you to calculate the total particulate matter reductions from your new cleaner vehicle project, the total nitrogen oxides emission reductions in tons per year that will result from your project, and then they have a simple formula. They want you to take the total cost, not just what you're eligible for, but the total cost. So if you're doing 10 vehicle replacements, they'd want the total cost for all 10 vehicles divided by the total amount of pollution of particulate matter and nitrogen oxides that will be reduced by those 10 vehicles. So total cost divided by total pollution reduced gives you a $1 per ton cost effectiveness metric. What they will do then is they will rank all projects in order from lowest cost effectiveness, so most cost effective project, to least cost effective project, and they will make awards for the top $15 million in projects. Now, there is a change from past years. They are stipulating that they will give bonus points to fleets who are able to provide more than the 20% minimum match. So what they're saying is they will take cost effectiveness at different cutoffs of $10,000. So the first $1 through $10,000 of cost effectiveness, the $11,000 through $20,000, and so forth and so on. They will have different tranches of tiered cost effectiveness, and within those tranches, they will re-rank projects based on how much match they are providing. So someone who provides 25% match will be ranked above someone who has 20% match. Someone who has 30% match will be ranked above the 20 and 25%, and so forth and so on. So as you look at a project, realize that no matter how cost effective your project is, they will factor in how much match you are providing and re-rank in $10,000 tranches of cost effectiveness accordingly. I know that is a little bit cumbersome and confusing. Happy to talk through it more at the end in the question and answer portion. So now I want to talk a little bit about, if you are looking to apply for this program, how you can maximize your project's competitiveness within this program. So first and foremost, you want to select vehicles with little to no emission controls, which will maximize the potential emission reductions that you can achieve through a diesel cleanup project. So in 2007 and newer vehicles, all vehicles were required to have a diesel particulate filter as part of the kit from the full vehicle delivered from the dealer or manufacturer. So that would reduce up to 95% of the particulate matter. So you want to the extent you can, make sure the vehicle you're targeting doesn't have particulate matter controls. And then in 2010, all vehicles 2010 and newer were required to have nitrogen oxide controls. That's diesel emission fluid, exhaust gas recirculation, and a number of other technologies. So the maximum potential sweet spot for vehicles I've outlined here as 1998 through 2006. I've kind of arbitrarily used 1998 as a start date because you do have to state that your vehicle has at least 5 years of useful life remaining. So I don't think vehicles much older than 98, unless you have a compelling reason that there's much room to argue that it has 5 years of useful life remaining. And I've used the cutoff date of 2006 here for the sweet spot because 2007 and newer vehicles have at least one of the particulate matter controls on it. Now there are a number of 2007 and even 2008 vehicles that might not have particulate matter or NOx controls. The main point here is that you want to target vehicles that have the sweet spot of useful life remaining and no emission control, so you have the maximum amount of pollution to reduce. You also want to select vehicles with high annual mileage or fuel use. These two usage criteria directly correspond to the level of emissions of a vehicle. So the program is eligible for vehicles class 5 through 8. The heavier duty and the higher fuel use and mileage will relate directly to higher emission reduction potentials from a project. You also want to look at vehicles that likely have over 20,000 miles. For a number of public entities like cities and counties, their vehicles usually have a smaller service territory than a private delivery fleet, for example. So if you are one of those public entities, you want to be targeting vehicles that have high mileage. And no matter who you are, the higher mileage vehicles in those model years the most competitive projects will have lower costs while maximizing emission reductions. And we can talk more on the tail end or individually with anyone about what options might exist in this regard. Really important, all technologies must be EPA certified or SmartWay verified to be eligible for funding. This is the majority of technologies that are available. However, there are various technologies that are coming in from Europe or Asia that, while feasible and fully technically functioning, do not currently have EPA or SmartWay certifications. Also eligible are any technologies that have California Air Resources Board or CARB certifications. But the bottom line here is all technologies must have these formal verifications in order to be eligible. And then this program is a reimbursement program where you must complete the whole program and then get reimbursed. However, all projects must have federal authorization to proceed to be eligible for funding. So what that means is no retroactive projects will be eligible for funding. You have to apply for a completely new project that wouldn't begin until you've been awarded, contracted, and get federal authorization to proceed. So no retroactive projects eligible for funding. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Clean Fuels Ohio application process. Again, all fleets are eligible to apply directly on their own, but Clean Fuels Ohio can apply on your behalf for a grant writing fee, and I'm going to speak more about the details of how that works. So we have an online diesel emission reduction grant resource center. This webinar, as well as a number of other resources, are posted on that portion of our website. You can log on to cleanfuelsohio.org. There is an icon for this in the upper right-hand corner of the website, as well as links under our consulting services tabs. So on our website, we provide guidance on eligibility, subsidy levels, and a number of other things. We also provide for free a number of templates to submit basic project data, whether you're working with us or on your own. And then we also have deadlines, details, and directions should you want to work with us. If you want to work with us, we'll talk through more about that now. So what we are requesting is that if you're looking to have Clean Fuels Ohio write your grant for you, we're requesting some basic project information by next Friday, October 23rd. Your project doesn't have to be finalized or set in stone or anything like that by the 23rd, but what we're looking for by the 23rd is basic project details. There's a Excel data sheet on our website that you can download, and we're asking for basic details on the make, model year, and usage of the existing vehicles that you'd be targeting, as well as information on, are you looking to retrofit, replace, or convert those vehicles, and what technologies are you targeting. So we just need some basic information in a spreadsheet about the number and type of vehicles that you're targeting, as well as the new equipment that you will be requesting from the grant. We also need some basic information about the cost of that project based on, based on a vendor quote primarily. So we need to have a pretty clear view of how much you're going to be requesting and how much you'll be eligible for. We need to know, are you interested in providing extra match, and what that matching contribution would be from your organization. So we're requesting basic project details by October 23rd. If we are able to receive those by the 23rd, what we plan to do over the last week of October and first week of November is some detailed consulting with any fleet that, some free and detailed consulting with any fleet that provides that basic project data to us. What we will do is we will have the basic conversation with you to make sure your project and your thinking about the project is fully eligible and there's no red flags or anything like that on the basic pass-fail eligibility criteria. We'll also review and assess the basic project data submissions, and we will work up a cost-effectiveness metric based on the data you've submitted. And we will detail the relative competitiveness of the project based on all the other fleets we've worked with. So in the past years, we've worked with approximately 100 fleets, and so we have detailed cost effectiveness and competitive information on those 100 fleets, and we can rank, vet, and review your project and let you know where it falls into the mix of all the past projects that have been submitted and awarded to this program. So we can let you know, are you in the top tier of competitiveness? Are you in the middle? Are you in the bottom tier? Where do you fall in relative likely competitiveness? And then we can also provide you a formal grant writing cost quote for the two models that we have based on the project information you submitted. So our goal is to vet projects over the week of the 26th and provide all those details back to folks over the week of the 26th and the first week of November, allowing anyone who wants to work with Clean Fuels Ohio to understand both the relative competitiveness of their project based on other past projects, as well as whatever the potential costs are for Clean Fuels Ohio to write your grant application, hopefully arming anyone who's interested with the decision points they need to decide whether to go forward with the project in general and with Clean Fuels Ohio in particular. And then from there, if you decide to go forward with Clean Fuels Ohio, we will basically take it from there, sign a contract with you to write these grant services, and then put together all the relevant application narrative details, the full emission criteria and other paperwork needed for the grant, help assemble vendor quotes. If you're a public fleet or a private fleet, we have a public sponsor lined up and can work with you to execute that public-private partnership, gather financial records and any other administrative paperwork needed as part of the grant submission, and then we will work to provide a full application to the Ohio EPA on your behalf. So that is the basics of the program, as well as how Clean Fuels Ohio can work with you. I will remain on the line here, and we will open up the line to verbal questions from those of you who have called in, as well as we will respond to chat questions from those of you who want to chat your questions to us. So we're here now and available to answer any questions you may have.